When's the first time you guys met?
I
knew who they were. I was down there several times.
Yeah, well, you didn't. Well, let me explain. So we were under SOCOM. We were using the Army, and Erik can explain. The Army wanted to pull out, by the way. Army did not like the fact we were using their technology for our operations. So
why not? Why wouldn't they?
Because, well, you want to explain that?
Part of it is when you're doing data mining, you're harvesting everything.
Including open source.
Intelligence collectors are very restricted, on what we can collect it when a U.S. person comes up. But when a tool does it, it gets everything. And so you have to be able to go through that and excise all the information about U.S. persons. This is a throwback from Vietnam days and Pike and Church Committee 75, that kind of stuff. So they wrote these regulations for intel collection, but they never updated them. Well, again, because we were the first data mining operation.
We weren't intelligence. I know this is going to sound weird. We were doing our effort under Title 10. Title 10 is known as traditional military activities. That's why I went to Kurt as Armed Services, not intelligence, to ask for money for the Navy.
Well, you didn't come to me.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't. I was funding it through
No.
the R&D budget.
Later.
Yeah, later.
I mean, so
And I plussed up their funding, whatever they wanted. But I didn't need to get read in. It wasn't until 9/11 I get these frantic phone calls on my cell phone from him, from Eileen Pricer, from Scott Philpott. We have to meet you right away.
But
I meet with them on 9/11, and they roll out the charts. That's the first time I knew that they had identified all the Al-Qaeda cells in advance of 9/11.
Right.
That's when I found out. I took it right down to the White House, to Steve Hadley. I called Rice's deputy. I said, I've got to see you right away. He said, we're under attack. I said, I have to see you. I took Dan Burton with me. Dan Burton was chairman of the Oversight Committee, and I took Chris Shays. I rolled out the charts. And Steve Hadley, Deputy National Security Advisor, said to me, where did you get these from? I said, Steve, I've been telling you since you came into office in January that this team was the cutting edge. The Clinton administration ignored it. You didn't take any action on it. And this is what developed by them. And he said to me, I've got to show this to the man. I said, the man?
Who's the man at the time?
The president, George Bush. He said, I've got to show it to them. They took the charts. And when in subsequent questions of Steve Hadley, he has acknowledged that I gave him charts, but he says, I can't remember what those charts were. When I met with Seymour Hersh told me those charts are still on the hard drive at the NSA. That was 5 years ago.
So my point I'm trying to make to underscore what Kurt is saying, we were an operational unit that was designed to go do something. We weren't an intelligence unit. Although we were intelligence officers, we were doing operations. It's called J3 versus J2. And that was one of the controversial points because we didn't recognize the limits on U.S. citizens because we didn't have to. Traditional military activities, Title 10, is what George Washington did during the Continental War, the Continental Army, what they did. And so that was one of the controversial points. But the bottom line is, Kurt funded the advanced technology that we, SOCOM, figured out how to get and use. That technology then used by Erik put together the series of charts, which then became the basis for the plans we were using.
Are those the charts?
Those are some of the charts, yes.
Those are the two primary charts.
They're
the charts that I was given by them. The original charts went to Bush in the White House.
So what conclusion did you guys come up with? Because we still haven't talked about it, right? What conclusion did you come up with of what happened
here's
on 9/11?
Here's the best example. Read this book. This is not them. Forget them. This is the book about one of our top military generals who was on horseback. He had like 9,000 soldiers under his command. And this book, Keith Labor, I never met General Lambert. I maybe met him. This book was a New York Times bestseller and a movie. On page 27, he's asked, what were your thoughts when 9/11 happened? And General Lambert says in his own words, you can read it, within seconds I knew who had done the attack, and I knew it involved Muhammad Atta because I had been briefed on a top-secret Army intelligence program. That's Able Danger. None of that's in the 9/11 Commission report, and that proves that what they were doing identified Muhammad Atta. It basically calls everyone else a liar. Because General Lambert says it in his book that he knew within seconds Muhammad Atta was involved in 9/11. And Louis Freeh said afterwards that if he'd had the information, we could have prevented 9/11 from happening.
By the way, he was one of the individuals that the IG, the DOD IG, refused to interview. Why? You're a guy that has to make investments. If you have someone who's a principal actor in a company who has a major role, wouldn't you go and interview them before anything else to figure out what's going on? Lambert was the chief of operations, and they refused. They DODIG during the time that he asked them to investigate our claims. They refused to talk to Lambert. To this
whole
day,
thing's a cover-up.
to this day.
So on the evening of 9/11, we were all on the phone with each other because we knew it was coming. We had deep conversations the entire time we were running this operation that we knew something was coming. So 9/11 happens, we're all talking to each other, and the watch phrase was, "So it begins." We knew this was coming out, and that was,
You knew this was coming
we
out?
knew it was coming.
We were trying to.
You knew 9/11 was going to happen?
We knew something was coming. They were coming offensively, and they'd already established a deep footprint.
What were some of the things that you guys were speculating that could take place?
Well,
Was it 9/11? You wouldn't sit there and say, guys, someone's about to attack World Trade Center. Was that it, or was it
No.
someone's going to attack White House, Pentagon? Did you guys have the 5-10 targets that you thought they're going to attack?
we knew where the cells were at.
Right.
We knew where they physically were hanging out.
And where were
we
those
had linked
cells?
them. They had different clusters. One was New York, one was Maryland, and the other one was Florida, as I recall.
Right.
And they were all clustered. We had individuals linked to the Al-Qaeda leadership.
Those are the top three?
New Jersey,
New Jersey,
New York,
yeah.
New Jersey, D.C.,
Florida.
Florida.
Hi, I'm Kurt Weldon, teacher, firefighter, father of 5, family man, who spent 20 years in the Congress after serving as mayor and county chairman of my county in suburban Philadelphia. My intent is to give experiences and information and knowledge about the 104 countries that I led delegations to during my 20 years in the Congress, and all of the work that I did on behalf of America's firefighters and first responders traveling around the country. If you'd like to connect with me, connect on Minect, and I will get back to you.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.